I'm Vanessa Murphy. We're going to have a question and answer session, a short one, with Mayor Andy Letham. And Mayor Letham, you have a new title with Kawartha Conservation. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Kawartha Conservation Authorities are our regional area conservation authority, and I have been elected chair for this year for 2021. So a lot of changes coming from the province this year on regulations and governance of conservation authorities. So I look forward to working with. We've got some excellent staff out there that have done a real good job at pivoting last year with this pandemic and what they were allowed to do and not allowed to do, and seem to be putting some really good processes in place to move things along and get permits out to people. Conservation authorities are responsible for helping us look after our watershed and our drinking water, our environment. So very important work that they do, and I look forward to leading that charge this year and working with our development community to make sure it's being done safely and properly.
Tell me about some new funding announced for recovery.
Yeah, we had a couple of task forces recently, our Community Recovery Task Force and our Economic Recovery Task Force. The Economic Recovery Task Force just got approved through Council. Cultural recovery, sector recovery, funding of $100,000 grant that the city's put up. It'll be application based for some of our cultural entities in the city, non-for-profits, to get a little bit of assistance with some of their operating funds to help keep them going. And the Community Recovery Task Force came forward with a proposal which council approved for $500,000 to help out some of our nonprofit agencies in the city that really do help our people. So 380,000 of that is from the Lindsay Legacy Trust Fund, so it'll be allocated in the Lindsay area, and another 120,000 will be citywide. So again, application based. Great opportunity for our residents and some of our organizations to be able to get a little bit of assistance from the city to keep them going till they can get back into fun. Tough time for a lot of our arts and culture groups and our community groups because they can't do their fundraising events. So some of them are struggling. They can't open. They still got bills to pay. So we're just seeing if we can buy them a little bit of help to get them through till they're in a little bit better time.
And speaking of organizations, what is happening with the women's shelter and temporary housing in Fenelon Falls?
Yeah, the women's shelter in Fenelon Falls is transitioning over, been sold to our housing corporation, Affordable Housing Corporation. So, the supports they have in Lindsay, the women's shelter has agreed that the supports they have in Lindsay are better for, women who are in need of these shelters, the transit, just the other support services are much closer by to assist. So Affordable Housing has agreed to purchase their facility in Fenelon Falls, and I think they're going to come up with 8 units of affordable housing, and anybody who's been taking shelter there will not lose. I mean, they'll have first opportunity to take one of these units. So they're going to work together to have a transition. So nobody's being put out as a result of this over the next few months, but sort of a win-win for everybody. Good for what Fenelon needs with the housing, and a better home for some of the women that need the shelter, with better support services in the Lindsay area. So a little bit of transition.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Go ahead.
Sorry, definitely one of those stories where you have to kind of read beyond the headline, because when you first read some of the headlines, it's like, that doesn't sound good. But then when you actually read the story, you realize it is a win-win situation.
It is. It's completely a win-win. And I know it's a little change, and, they're going to do it a little differently, but they're going to be able to deliver those services better with the proper supports that some of these women need. And, this has been a tough time for some of the women struggling in relationships as well. So unfortunately, the needs for our shelters aren't going away anytime soon.
I have a question about the Lindsay Transit Hub. Where did it go?
Due to the construction in the downtown, the hub was on Victoria and Kent Street. Victoria and Kent Street's in a little bit of turmoil right now with everything going on. So they've just moved it back to the corner of Victoria and Russell Street West. So just to take it a little bit out of the construction area so that people waiting aren't getting dusty with jackhammers and all the noise and everything going on. So just a temporary until they can get that section of the main street fixed. But regular transit services are still operational across the city.
Yeah, it's definitely one thing where you kind of look down the street and you're like, oh, but then you realize things are being done for a good reason. What is the process going forward with this?
Council's made a decision not to put ice in there again, so not close it. But we've got a report coming back from our staff in, I think it's March or April. I'm not 100% sure exactly when. What some of the other, other uses for that property, that facility, and that's when we can generate a discussion with our community on, where do we want to go with this, and what the process. I know there was a lot of questions on the process that I've heard from residents on, did we a decision was made from a previous council not to close any of our arenas? How can you, as this council, decide to close a facility? Well, there's a lot of people seem to have a lot of answers out there. Some of them are past councillors, and if they were so knowledgeable, maybe they'd still be councillors. There's my Monday morning comment, but you know what? At the end of the day, I get my information from the clerk, and the clerk says a past council cannot bind a future council. And so, we are well within our rights to make decisions going forward. It doesn't have to be reconsidered. It doesn't have to be any of that. It was just a decision of council. So as things change in our community, council has to have the ability to make decisions, and we can't be bound forever by, past decisions of past councils. So situations change, and we need to be able to adapt to that. I think we've got time for one more question, Vanessa.
Minimum charge at the landfill has gone up. Why is that?
Well, our minimum charge was about $5, and we've increased it to 10. That's very comparable with municipalities around the Kawartha Lakes, and it's really just, it's not a money-making venture. It's subsidized by the taxpayers, and we're just trying to put a little bit more on the users and a little lot less on the general tax base for people who maybe don't use the landfill, and remind residents that we're still picking up 3 bags at the curb. So if you do have a minimum load to take to the landfill, is it really necessary to take it right now? Just stay home and be safe, and we will pick it up from the curb as we've been doing in the past. So we've got a good service there with Miller. They're doing a good job for us.